Hey y'all, it's Queen J back with another episode of Let's Get Uncomfortable. Now, I believe we on episode 17. I may have lost count, but it's okay. This week's topic is actually something that was requested. Thank you everyone that has participated in the polls. That is kind of how I actually want the podcast to be from now on. So as far as topics go, I will be posting a poll on my Instagram before recording the episode, and you guys get to choose what topic that I speak on. So tonight's topic is special, as they all are, but this one I been wanting to touch on for a while. But before we get into the topic, before we jump into, everything about Let's Get Uncomfortable, before we get uncomfortable, we got to get comfortable with the mind first. We got to get comfortable with ourselves, and we got to have that, just that stillness, that mindfulness to set our minds at ease. It's been a long day. At least for me, it has. So without further ado, let's get into some mindfulness. Pause, breathe, relax. It is now time for us to open our mind to explore new ways of healing within this lifetime. It is now time for us to clear our mind from anxiety, from things that trigger us. It is now time for us to return back to ourselves. Back to that serenity, back to that space of tranquility, back to where we feel at peace. And let no disturbance deter us from experiencing our peace. All right, y'all. I hope that allowed y'all to feel calm, allowed y'all to melt the stress away, or allow the stress to roll off your back. Put your shoulders down, take a few deep breaths if you need to, because we are now ready to get into tonight's topic. So I asked whether or not we could talk about, or whatever topic you guys wanted to hear me speak on. And surprisingly, yet unsurprisingly, everyone voted for tips on how to overcome anxiety. And I want to first put a little small disclaimer on here. These are tips and methods that work for me, and they may work for you. And managing your own anxiety and self-soothing and things like that. And you can use these. I'm not going to say this is the end-all be-all for overcoming anxiety. That is not what this is. I have a background in education. I have a background in psychology, health education, and wellness and mindfulness. But these are just some of the things that I find to be my favorite. So first, for me, I will start by saying that I did not know how to overcome my anxiety for years until I started to do more research into what worked for me. Because whenever I had anxiety attacks, I would have people be like, just calm down. Just calm down. Put your shoulders down. Just calm down. And it wouldn't calm me down. Surprisingly, shocker, it would actually piss me off. So for me, whenever I have someone like try to address my anxiety in that moment, I never felt safe enough to be like, this isn't working for me. Actually, my go-to thing, and this is before I knew, I would just leave. I would just, whatever, didn't matter what the situation was. If I became panicked, if I became like, if I started to not feel like myself, I would simply just leave. It could be mid-conversation and I would just be like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I would genuinely be like, I don't want to do this. And I would say, I'm not doing this, and I would walk away. Didn't matter what the situation was. It just, for me in that moment, whatever it was throwing me off and I didn't like it. Didn't matter if I was triggered. Didn't matter if I was actually having a panic attack. But I can say now that I've gotten my own tools and my own little like routine to calm myself down. I first start with asking myself a question. Either something along the lines of, are you okay? How are we feeling in this moment? Do like some type of check-in with myself to see if, one, is it actually anxiety or is it something else? And what I mean by something else is it something that is causing me to actually be uncomfortable? Because I think there's a distinct difference between when I am feeling triggered and when I have anxiety. If I'm feeling triggered, that means that in some way, shape, or form, I am now feeling unsafe. If I'm having anxiety, for me, that's, okay, I'm looking too far ahead in the future. I'm panicking over what hasn't even happened yet. So if I'm thinking about in terms of, and this may work for you guys as well, if you think about it in terms of, okay, take a deep breath. Okay, handle it, tackle it in these scenarios, in this format. 1, what is causing me to feel this way? Is it a trigger or is it a feeling of unknown circumstances, or is it something that I feel needs to be addressed right now? Like, is it something that I can address later? Or is it something that I need to address right now because I'm in a state of uncomfortableness that's unhealthy for me? In the terms of my physical self, my emotional self, my mental self. Like, is all of that okay? And then if I can check off that box and say, yeah, all that's fine. It's just this. In particular, I'll just say, for example, yesterday I had a pretty triggering type of day where I was in my head because I had something unexpected happen. And it kind of started a snowball effect of anxiety. So throughout the day, I was like, okay, I need to breathe. I need to meditate. As soon as I get off of work, I'm about to do yoga. I'm about to work out. I'm going to do something to regulate my mind because something is off. I'm not even really stressed about these things. Something else caused me to start thinking in this way. So that's just how I regulate myself. So the first thing is ask yourself, are you okay? Is it something that can be handled now, or is it something that can be handled later? And when I say, is it something that can be handled now, is it something that we need to address? We need to vocalize. We need to say, look, I need to get out of here. This is not it for me. This space, this environment, I'm okay. We can deal with this at a later time. I'm feeling some anxiety. I need to step away. Or is it a scenario where, no, I'm actually not feeling that way right now. It doesn't need to be addressed right now. I don't need to leave. I don't need to drop whatever I was doing. Is it something, for better terms, and for people who are following along, is it something that is requesting my immediate attention? Or is it something that I can self-soothe in the moment and just say, okay, we know that we're feeling this way. We can acknowledge the anxiety. We can acknowledge the trigger or the anxiety and say, okay, I'm going to look at this from a clear head. I cannot look at this from this perspective because it's going to cause this specific reaction. And that's another thing that I'll say too. It's all about understanding how you know that you're going to react and respond to things. Because I've always said there is a difference between reacting to something versus responding. I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again. In the past, when I was angry, when I was anxious, when I was in a state of unknown and uncertainty and I didn't feel heard, I would often react. And a lot of the times that for me would be going off on whoever and basically saying whatever the hell I needed to say without any filter, without any regard for anyone's, not necessarily their feelings, but without any regard for whatever their situation may be. Meaning it could have been a bad time for someone else to experience what I needed to say, but it didn't matter to me. I didn't think about, oh, what does this person have going on? I wasn't really considerate of the full picture, so to speak. So when I'm having anxiety at that time and I didn't have these tools, I would just blow up. I would blow up to the point where it was like I was either hyperventilating and I didn't want to be bothered, or it was to the point where I'm like scrolling through my phone trying to find somebody because this is one of the worst panic attacks that I've ever had type of situation. There wasn't really like an in-between until more recently. As someone who also has post-traumatic stress disorder, I've talked about these symptoms before, but they are really big. I know I like gloss over them sometimes, but they are really big because the thing is, a lot of that involves me communicating with myself either out loud or on the phone or leaving myself like a voice note or something to remind myself that I am not living the life that I used to live when I was living in survival mode, when I was living out of that chaotic environment. And B, I need to talk to myself better. I need to work on these positive things because for me, that's also where my anxiety comes from. That level of, oh my God, I used to not have the best self-love relationship with myself. What if that happens again? What if I slip back? What if I go back into depression? What if all these different things? For me, a lot of my anxiety is based upon what ifs. It's never based in reality. A lot of my anxiety stems from what if. Some of it can be rooted in a reality that I once knew. I will say that. And that's where I'll say that's more of a trigger. Because for me, when we're thinking about overcoming anxiety is just the fear of the unknown. It's literally, okay, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what my life's going to look like a year from now or 2 years from now or however long. Anxiety is living in the future, which we can't do, but we try to. And that's where it becomes, oh my God, this, oh my God, what if I don't do this? And again, it's those what ifs. And I heard something from my therapist a long time ago that she basically took the question, what if? And she said, what if we redirected it? What if we changed it to, so what? What if we changed it to, okay, so what? Like, you have that thought and you say, what if this doesn't work out? So what? What's going to happen? What are the consequences? What's the biggest consequence that you can think of? And then literally think of that big consequence and just go, so what? Because when you say that, you lessen the power that it has over you. When you reframe it and you then say, okay, we had that thought. We had that question. Moving on. Because I've said this before, but when you live in the future, you're not existing in the present. Same thing if you live in the past, you're not existing in the present. So for me, if I experience anxiety spells, which is what I kind of like to call them now, because it's not like a full attack. It's more like, okay, I need to just breathe through this. I'm going to work through this, that self-talk. Whenever I have something like that come up, it is so easy for me to be like, okay, I'm just going to go right back to doing what I used to do, which is calling a million people, going off, when actually that's not necessarily how I want to address it. It's just, that's just the way that I've always done it, or used to do it, I should say. Something that I'm accustomed to. I will say overcoming anxiety can be challenging because of the simple fact that it's requiring you to dig deeper into your psyche and dig deeper into the power of your own thought. So it's not just okay, so what? Like, we're just going to forget that we even had the thought. It's more so a so what of not giving that thought power or control over you. Anxiety it can be debilitating at times, because especially if, like, I can't even, the one thing that I've noticed within my anxiety is that I can't pinpoint, like, I can say big crowds, like being in a crowded, tight area where I can't get out, that will give me anxiety all day long. But it's also very situational. Like, if I'm with the right people, if I'm with my friends and I'm with that crowd of people, I also feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I'm not feeling good anymore. I'm just going to step away for a little bit. And I think that's interesting, because before I probably would have just been like, okay, I'm very on edge right now and I'm just going to suffer through it. But that's another way you can overcome your anxiety, by vocalizing it, talking at it. Oh my God, that's one of the best ways that has helped me. Like I said, yesterday was a pretty not so easy day for me. And the best thing that I did was I made it very clear to the people in my life. I said, look, I have been feeling off all day. I will get back to you at such and such time. I just need some time to myself. Because I realized as I'm pacing back and forth in my house, I'm like panicking over things that I wasn't even panicking over before. My move is coming up really soon and I have all these boxes everywhere. I hate looking at the boxes. I'll say that again. I hate looking at the boxes. I don't know. Some reason during this move, the boxes is giving me anxiety. Maybe because it makes me feel like I don't have enough space. And like I said, I'm very claustrophobic. But I literally was just walking past the boxes yesterday and I was like, okay, we don't need to rush this. A lot of situations for me with anxiety has also come where I'm rushing myself or forcing myself to do something in a manner in which that I just don't have the capacity to do, aka rushing myself. So I would say, just to keep up with what I'm saying here, there are tips to overcome anxiety. 1, ask yourself about your frame of mind. Get a clear sense of where your frame of mind is. We know that we already are aware that your mind is all over the place. We already are aware that you're feeling stressed, right? You're feeling that level of nerves rise, right? You're feeling that. We already aware of that. We're established there. We know that. So we can't be like, well, I'm stressed. Then we take it a step further and we say, why? Why are we feeling this way? And the best way to figure out why we're feeling a certain way is to retrace our routine. So like, let's say at 1:00 p.m. is when the anxiety started, when you first started to feel anxious, but the problem didn't arise or the situation didn't happen until prior to 1 p.m. So then if you know that at 1 p.m. You're stressed. You know that at 1 p.m. you got this anxiety, you got this panic attack. Try to regulate your mind, try to center yourself. And this is where I'll take out a notebook or a piece of paper, or I'll mentally make note of like, okay, I was having a conversation with so and so, and then I made breakfast, and then I did this, and then I did this, and it'll be like, oh, right there. If I had a conversation with someone and then I did this particular habit where I was making breakfast, what about your routine has been thrown off? For me, it was I had a conversation with someone before I did my regular routine, getting ready for work, getting ready for my day. That may not necessarily be the case, but always working backwards from that time where you experience the panic, the initial panic, helps you figure out, or has helped me to figure out, when exactly I started to feel the levels of my anxiety increase. And writing it out really does help, because this is something that I still kind of do this, but I don't do it on pen to paper anymore. I do it mentally. If you prefer pen to paper, that's totally fine. But when you write out your triggers, your anxieties, and you write out why you feel the way that you feel, you then validate your feelings. So when I write out, okay, I have anxiety over this conversation with someone, that is me validating I don't like how that person made me feel during that conversation. That is that. And then from there you can say, okay, so we know that we don't like that. We can revisit that. Or does it need to be revisited right now? For me, working backwards usually looks like I said, taking mental notes and saying, okay, so I know that I woke up. I know that I wanted to do such and such thing, but I didn't judge myself on not making it to do whatever routine that was. Then I got a call. I'm just using this as an example because this literally just happened. But then I got a call. That interfered with my work, with me getting ready for work, with me doing my routine. For me, routine is very, very important. So when that gets interrupted, I'm off balance. There's a side of me that's like, well, crap, now I have to make up for what I didn't do because I didn't start my day the way that I wanted to. So after determining that this is the point in which I feel stressed, I then look around me and look for tools that I usually use to calm myself down. Whether that be incense. For me, I'm a really big aromatherapy woman. I love candles. I love incense. Anything that can help soothe my nose, or that I can breathe in. Like if I can look at smoke, that just puts my mind at ease. Maybe I'm weird, but it does. And if the incense don't work, then I turn to jotting down how I'm feeling in the moment after having experienced the anxiety, the initial point of anxiety. After I jot that down and I say, okay, I am feeling kind of overwhelmed. Then I go to, okay, what's causing me to feel overwhelmed? I was behind on my work calls today. Okay. And then it goes to, what can we do to not be behind on our work calls? How can we improve the day? Rather than focus on the negative, it's all about reframing our mind to come up with different avenues, basically. Think of it like this. I like to think of it like this. You know how there are mazes and you have to find the right path to get out of the maze? That's what having anxiety is like. Sometimes you're going to hit a dead end but you have to be able to enough so that you can see the clear goal. I used to hate mazes. Like, I used to absolutely, I've never been in one, but I used to hate having to try to draw them. I used to hate having to try to figure them out because I would hit walls. It's like a puzzle. You have to be able to redirect your brain and your body so that the situation works for you. Same thing with your anxiety. You have to be able to take that anxiety and not give it power over you. And that's the best tool that I've ever acquired in my years of healing, in my years of learning about how to heal within this particular aspect of CBT therapy and rapid movement desensitization therapy. I definitely got that wrong, but it's okay. I always get it wrong, but trust me, I know what it is. But when I attack something or when I address something, it has to be in the state of mind where this is beneficial for me. We can't continue to look at anxiety as, okay, so this is such a negative experience. This is such a bad thing, because a lot of the times anxiety can be a positive thing too, if you choose to look at it that way. One of the other ways that I have been overcoming my anxiety has been listening. I know I mentioned him before, but listening to Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk book, his audiobook. Oh my God, it's amazing. If y'all are interested in learning about how to really use the mind as a tool for beneficial use, especially through healing and existing in this world, it's a great read. Essentially, in one of the chapters, he talks about how fear can be used in a positive way. And a lot of the time, anxiety is fear. Fear and anxiety go hand in hand. When you first feel anxiety, you're like, oh my God, I can't wrap my head around this. This is too much. It becomes overwhelming and and so on and so forth. Well, that's just fear, because it's fear of the unknown. So in his chapter, I forget what chapter it was, but he was talking about how anxiety can be a bad thing, but it can also be a good thing. So like, let's say, for example, I'm sure we probably all have heard of high functioning anxiety or productivity anxiety. That is the type of anxiety where you are positively affecting yourself and you're not allowing it to negatively impact you, where you're like, okay, I have this anxiety and I'm not going to get anything done. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to have the panic attack and I'm just going to, whereas high functioning or high level or productivity anxiety is kind of the opposite, exactly the opposite. It's taking it and saying, okay, so I got this burst of excitement, right? I have this, because essentially all anxiety is, anxiety as a definition, as I said, is fear of the unknown. But when we break it down in the same way that Jay Shetty was breaking it down, what exactly is fear? Like, when we first feel that moment of fear, so to speak, what exactly is that feeling? What does it feel like? It's a shock value, right? It's more of a, oh my God. So when you're excited, don't you feel a level of that, oh my God, that, oh my God feeling, that kind of like shock feeling? When you take it and look at it as, oh, anxiety is just a flood of emotions or a flood of excitement. It really is, because your heart's racing. You're feeling elevated. You're not elevated, but like you're feeling a big wave of adrenaline. And it's all about what you do with that adrenaline. It may not be like adrenaline that you wanted, but now you have it. So it's all about, again, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to allow it to be the center focus of your day and prohibit you from getting things done that you wanted to accomplish? Or are you going to use it to your advantage and say, you know what, I'm going to use this to fuel me instead. My anxiety or the anxiety stemming from this situation is not about to control me. It's just not. And I think it all boils down to, at least for me, it boils down to the confidence in me redirecting that energy. Because as difficult as it is to overcome anxiety, it's going to be present. It's all about how you manage it. Woo, let's get uncomfortable, y'all. Y'all know I tell y'all the real. I tell y'all the real. It's all about how you manage it. Because when you start to manage it, you give it less control. When you start to acknowledge it and say, okay, this is what we're dealing with and this is what I choose to do with it. I'll give you another prime example. I have anxiety when I drive. I seriously do. I have anxiety when I drive. I have a car now, and I tell all of my friends, I still get anxiety when I drive, but if you guys, you know what I mean, I tell them all because I do. That's something that I am working through. But when I first got my car, and I first decided to get back out on the road, I was terrified. I didn't even want to leave the dealership, y'all. I have not told anyone this story. But I did not want to leave the dealership. I think I told one person when I was on the phone, and I think I told my mom, I'm scared. And she said, you got to do it. You just got to do it. And I said, okay. Because she's right. Here's the thing. I'm at the dealership. She's all the way in a whole nother state. What's she supposed to do? She ain't going to do nothing. I got to do this. I got to handle this. So I leave the dealership, and as I'm leaving the dealership, I'm like, okay, we about to listen to some good music on the way home. Now, it took me a moment to work up to driving on the freeway. It did, because I was terrified of the freeway. I was absolutely terrified of the freeway. I don't know. I can't tell you why. I couldn't get past it. And I did not get on the road after I first got my car. Like, I did not get on the freeway. I actually took the long way home for the first 2 months because I was like, no. I was like, I'm not taking the freeway. My friends will tell you, I put in my GPS, oh, streetway? Okay. That's it. And that's what I did. I didn't take the freeway until a week before I needed to take my first trip. I knew I would have to be driving for a while, and I was like, okay, I need to get over it. I need to overcome this fear. So I need to overcome this anxiety. So what I did was, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this location. Coincidentally, it was the gym, and then it was Target, and I was like, I'm taking the freeway. I called my mom. I told her, I said, I'm taking the freeway. And she said, okay, let me know how it goes. And I get in the car, put it in my GPS. I get to the gym. I immediately, as soon as I got to the gym, I was still sitting in my car. I'm like, oh my God, you did it. We did it. I celebrated myself so hard because I was like, oh my God, we made it. You got on the freeway and you did it. You were terrified as hell, but you did it, So I was sitting in the parking lot, and as I was celebrating, I was like, oh my God. And I started looking around, and I realized how far I have come in the steps to overcoming my anxiety with driving in general. So think of it like that. Think of how proud you'll be of yourself when you take that first step to say, okay, I'm not going to let my anxiety control me. Because if I had have let my anxiety control me as far as driving, I don't think I would have ever gotten in my car. I kept staring at my car out the window. I was like, okay, I'm going to drive today. I'm going to drive today. I'm going to work up the courage. I'm going to drive today. And one day I just was like, okay, we're going to drive. We're not driving far, but we're going to drive. And little by little, I chipped away at it. I'm still chipping away at it. I get terrified. Y'all, I'm being real. I don't like driving at night. And that is actually a trigger, more so a trigger than it is an anxiety. It stems from a past situation that I dealt with, that I had experienced at a young age. And I just drove for the first time at night on Monday. Yeah, y'all heard that right. I drove for the first time at night on Monday. And it wasn't even intentional, because leading up to it, I was panicking. I was so panicking. I was in my house. I was dressed for the gym. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym after I get off. I get off at 6. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the gym. I got off a little bit later than 6, and I was like, I'm not going to the gym. I was like, I'm not going to the gym. I'm just going to sit at home. I'm not going to the gym. And that's that. And something was just like, nah, you should go. So I got in my car. I had already gotten dressed for the gym. I got in my car, and I was like, okay, we're driving to the gym. Now, mind you, I drove to the gym when it was still like enough light outside where I wasn't like panicking. But as I'm driving to the gym, I'm like, oh my God, I'm taking the freeway again. And I start to think like, okay, I'm taking the freeway. And when I leave the gym, it's going to be dark. I started freaking out. I was like, okay, we can't think about that. Like, I'm driving behind the wheel and I'm talking to myself out loud at this point. And I go, we know it's going to be dark when you leave the gym. Focus on your workout and we'll handle it when it comes. So I go to the gym. I get my little pump in. I get my little pump in. And it was actually quite long. I had a plan. I said I was going to get to the gym by 7 something. And I probably was going to leave by at least 7:30. Mind you, I'm a gym head. Like, I really love going to the gym. Like, that's just, I'm a gym rat at heart. Like, it fuels me. So I don't know why I really thought like, okay, by 7:30, you're going to leave the gym. That was not realistic at all. I even laughed when I was at the gym and I was like, you knew you wasn't leaving by 7:30. Like, that's just not happening with the warm up. And no, that just wasn't happening. But I ended up doing my workout routine. And by the time that I left, it was actually 8:30 something. And I was like, oh my God, it's about to be pitch black. And I kid you not, guys, I kid you not. I get in my car, I say a quick little prayer, I turn on my headlights, and I just drive. Now, as I'm pulling out, I have to turn to the right. So I pull out and I turn to the right. I got a little bit of anxiety. I'm at the light to go straight and just to get on the freeway. And I'm like, I'm taking the freeway too? All of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not only driving at night, but I'm taking the freeway too? Okay, cool. I guess I'm just driving. So I had already put in my directions and I'm sitting at this light and I'm like, am I in the right lane? Oh my God, what if I'm not in the right lane? What if this happens? What if this happens? And I take 2 deep breaths and I look at the car in front of me and I say, you're going to go straight. And you've drove this freeway before. This is the same freeway that you drove. It's just at night. And I kept going and I drove. And my car is a smart car, so it'll notify me when there's other cars like in my blind spot so that I don't like hit them. So my car did that when I was on my way like home. And I was like, oh, okay, Xena, okay. Like, okay, Xena. That's my car's name. But I was like, okay, Zena, we good. It freaked me out a little bit. And then I finally get over in the right lane. I made it home. I get home and I'm like, holy shit, I made it home before 9 o'clock. And I took the freeway and my body is exhausted because I was productive at the gym. I say all of this to say, at each moment that I faced anxiety, that I felt it, I don't know if you caught it, I don't know if y'all caught this, but each time that I felt the anxiety come up in my chest, I faced it head on. I talked to it. I said, no. I got mad even. I said, no, I'm not doing that. We're not thinking like that. We just going. We gonna go straight. We gonna turn here. We gonna follow the instructions. We gonna, you know what I mean? Every time I felt anxiety, I faced it head on. That's the only way to not allow it to have power over you. I know I keep saying that, but it's so important because I can tell you guys from the honest bottom of my heart, the anxiety attacks that I used to have, and this is hard for me to admit, but let's get uncomfortable. They used to have me screaming out the pain. It hurts. It hurts so bad. I just want the pain to stop. It did. It was so bad. That's all I ever wished for, was for the pain to stop, because it hurt so bad. I felt so alone in those moments. The only people that I could turn to were my sister and my cousin. And that was the last time, the time that I'm thinking about right now, y'all. Whew. It was early mid pandemic, like right when the pandemic was beginning, and I was losing everything. I lost everything. And I can still say that because that rang true for me at that time. The relationship with my family wasn't the way that it is now. It was a lot of things that were different for me at that time. People in my life were in my life that are not now. It was crazy different, crazy transformative. But at that time, I started remembering so much, and I couldn't take it. I truly couldn't. I was sitting on the floor, and trigger warning to anyone that is probably relating to this story. Realistic events or true events. Trigger warning for those that have experienced anxiety attacks that have caused you to be in bed for weeks, or that have caused you to not talk, that have caused you to physically and mentally and verbally shut down. I'm surprised that I was able to speak at this point in which I'm talking about, but you know what? Like I said, let's get uncomfortable. I was lying in my room, and at this time, I lived by myself. Like I said, it was the really freshly beginning of the pandemic. Hardly told anyone that I was struggling with my anxiety so bad that I couldn't leave the house. But it all came to a point when I was still in school and I felt like I had no one. The only people that I talked to were, again, my sister and my cousin at the time. And the crazy thing was, no one had ever experienced or had ever witnessed the level of this panic attack that I had had. I've had these type of panic attacks before, but I was always alone dealing with them. And they would last a lot longer because I was alone. I'm talking like, y'all, these would probably last a good 3 days at best. Just me hyperventilating, trying to get through it, and crying. A lot of crying. A lot of me not really eating because I couldn't get enough strength to eat. But in this particular instance, I was on the phone with my sister And I remember us talking about something, and it wasn't that the conversation was triggering, so to speak. It was the fact that the situation was hitting me differently because the person was close to me, and it affected me on a really, really deep level. And I used to have a habit of where I just didn't care or pretended like I didn't care. And I made everything, for lack of a better phrase, I made everything feel like surface level. I made it feel like, okay, that doesn't bother me. Like I shrugged it off. I let it go too easy. But in actuality, it was suffocating me. It was killing me because I wasn't talking about it. At that time, I didn't have boundaries where I could say, no, this is not how you're going to treat me. And this is not how this is going to go. Sorry, y'all. That will not be a problem once I move to my new place, I promise. But it was just difficult. So I'm having this conversation with her, and basically we're talking, in mid-conversation, you can hear it in my voice. My voice rises, my throat hitches, like I can't really speak, but I'm trying to speak, and then I'm hyperventilating. And I'm hyperventilating to the point where she's like, Janae, I need you to breathe. I need you to calm down. Janae, I need you to, I can't, you know what I mean? Like, she's stuttering too, because she's like, oh my God, she's really having a panic attack. Like, what the fuck do I do? And she's like, okay, I got it. I know what to do. And I'm like, I finally get the strength because I'm hyperventilating. At this point, I can't even walk. I'm on the floor at this point, and I'm like, fuck, I'm pissed at myself because I'm embarrassed. This isn't how I ever wanted anyone to see me. So I'm just pissed. All around pissed, embarrassed, shocked. On top of me having the panic attack. And I'm trying to like make light of it. I'm very much a goofy, lighthearted person. Like, if you can't tell by now, for those of y'all that have been tuning in for a while, you could tell I'm very much goofy. I can laugh about anything, but I was trying to laugh in that moment. And my sister said, Janae, stop. I see you and I hear you. And we need to talk about this. And I told her, I said, no, I don't want to. I'm good. And keep in mind, I'm still hyperventilating. I'm just like, no, I'm good. And all hell breaks loose on that last I'm good. And I'm just boohoo crying. And at this point, I know that I need reinforcements because I'm not coming back from this. In my mind, I wasn't coming back from that. You got to understand the frame of mind that I was in, not good. So I gave her my cousin's number. When I got the strength, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. No, I know I'm fucking struggling right now, but I need you to do me a big ass favor. And she said, okay. I said, he is the only person that can help me right now because he's the only person that knew what it felt like. So she contacted him. I gave the number out, and it was not an easy thing to do. Gave the number. All of a sudden, we're on a 3-way call. I got my cousin and my sister on the phone with me, and they're like, Janae, I need you to breathe. You're not breathing. And I'm still hyperventilating. I'm still on the floor. I'm still crying. I'm still not really registering everything, you know. And my cousin, he says, I know it hurts, but you're going to get through it because you've gotten through it so many times before. I know your strength. I know your power. You can do this. And he was like, fuck that. Actually, I know it fucking hurts right now. I know the pain feels like it's never going to go away. But you know who has the power to make it go away? And I'm like, who? Like, I'm like, who? And he goes, you do. You have the power to make it go away. I know I can't go back and erase what the fuck has happened to me in my life, but I can make the changes that I need to make so that I don't experience it again. You know, we're in control of our lives in the present. I can't change the past, and it's fucked up what I experienced. But that's the thing. That's the key word there. Experienced. Past tense. Don't need to keep reliving it. So when anxiety comes up for me, I think about all the things that I have experienced, and I decide that it's going to be different. And I know that sounds so much easier said than done, like when I just said it that way, because believe you me, it was not easy. I promise you, that conversation lasted for 6 hours. That phone call lasted for 6 hours. I remember because I looked at it when I looked at it after I was done crying. Because by this point, just to give y'all a frame of mind, my phone was on the phone near me as I'm hyperventilating and calling out and saying that this is it. I'm over this. All these different things. I'm basically letting out the anxiety. My phone is on speaker. They're all talking me down. They're all, they're serious. It's like, no, Janae. I'm like, I'm sorry. And I'm blubbering and I'm saying, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you guys. I didn't mean to do this. I know I'm selfish. Like, I'm saying all the things that other people have said about me that I don't even believe to be true about myself. But this is what my anxiety does. This is what the anxiety does. That's just what it does. Doesn't necessarily mean that I believe what the anxiety tells me. But if you choose to, but if you decide like, okay, this is how I'm going to get through this, it's difficult. The problem happens within healing in terms of overcoming anxiety when we choose to listen to the anxiety. Like, if I listened to my anxiety in that moment, I probably wouldn't be half as far as where I am now. I wouldn't have this podcast. I wouldn't have made the blog. I wouldn't have done so much in my life. I wouldn't have accomplished so many things. And when I say accomplished, I don't mean by like the accolades or like the academic achievements or anything like that. I mean simply accomplishing a goal, such as overcoming my fear of driving after not driving for 5 years. That's insane. I didn't drive for 5 years, and I have been driving for the past 5 months. That's crazy to me because I did not think I was ever... I even told one of my friends, I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to drive again. I don't think I'm ever going to drive again. But look at me. Driving. Proving myself wrong. And the crazy part about this topic is that I always wanted to touch on this because I know the moment that I touch on it, the moment that I speak into the platform or into the podcast or wherever it needs to be spoken on, I'm going to feel that much lighter because me doing this episode, guys, this is me overcoming my anxiety too. This is me overcoming the fear that I've had about being so vulnerable with you guys about my worst anxiety attack, about the suicidal ideation. You have to make an active choice to not let it overpower you. Got to conquer it. Yell at it. Ask yourself to regulate the anxiety because it's not about overcoming the anxiety. It's more like tips to regulate anxiety because, yeah, we can overcome it, but then it comes back up. So it's more so of a regulation, because anxiety is going to happen within life. It is. And there are a lot of people that don't have anxiety. So this is going to be tips to regulating anxiety, overcoming anxiety, part 2. Because I was getting real personal with you guys. And I'm not done. Let's get uncomfortable, y'all. But basically, I didn't really start to allow myself to grow from the control of anxiety until that moment. Lying on the floor, saying all the things that I was saying, hyperventilating, crying, a blubbering mess. And I made a choice. Like, it wasn't just my cousin reinforcing, like, validating, this is how you're feeling. I totally understand it. It's a real feeling. Because a lot of the times I'd be like, this isn't real. This isn't real. This isn't real. I can't do this. This isn't real life. I'm sorry for hurting y'all and all that other stuff. You know, the anxiety, the lies pouring out, things like that. Insecurities and so on and so forth. But it wasn't just him and my sister and my other cousin, and you know what I mean? It wasn't just them coming together and saying, like, this is what you need to do. It was also something in me that shifted that day, where I realized that this isn't the life that I want to live. I can't keep walking around with my shoulders up to my ears because I'm pissed off at the world for the way that I've experienced life, or for the way that life was handed to me. Because baby, there ain't nothing that I can do about that. I can't go back and tell my mom, well, I would like for you to... That's not funny. Oh God. That's... I'm... and the... Oh wow. So literally, as I was about to say that, I realized that that's not funny, but it actually is. Comedic relief. I was going to say, I can't go back and ask my mom to unslap me. I can't. Because then, you can't do that. I can't go back in time and ask people to unhurt me, to undo the hurt that they've caused. I can't ask them to do that. We know that. So, what good does it do us? I'm speaking collectively now. What good does it do us to sit in the unknown and be fearful of that? What good does it do us to say, okay, I don't know if that situation is going to work out, so I'm going to just stay right here. Because what's the title of this? Oh yeah, let's get uncomfortable. Let's heal. The only way you grow is by getting uncomfortable. So anxiety for me has always been uncomfortable. Just because I was having panic attacks all the time does not mean that I ever grew comfortable with them. No, they surprised the hell out of me. I went from having external panic attacks to then having internal panic attacks, which I didn't even realize was a thing, because all of my anxiety was mainly external, to where it was visible on my face, it was visible in my body, you know, visible to others. But then all of a sudden it goes to internal, where then you can't see it. And it's more of a mental thing, rather than it being a, oh my God, I'm freaking out type of thing and I don't know what to do. No. There are different levels of anxiety. So when I started having internal panic attacks, that's when I really started to utilize self-soothing, mindfully soothing myself, actively talking at the anxiety, you know, because when it's external, I hate when it's external, because I feel like so much I feel so not myself. It's so difficult to even put it in words when it is external. And I haven't had an external panic attack in forever. But they suck. At least for me, they do. I'm not sure if everyone has the same experience, but I've had to literally help one of my closest friends through an anxiety attack, and I watched that one. I watched it happen, and it mirrored mine. When she had her panic attack in front of me, she was letting out the anxiety through talking and saying some really personal things. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is exactly like what I've been doing. And thinking to myself, like, okay, I know what to do. Like, I don't know. All of a sudden I was just like, okay, trauma-informed care, cat, let's do it. Let's help my friend. And we did it together. I taught her how to breathe in, breathe out, regulate her breathing, regulate, all the different emotions that she was feeling. I even told her, I said, if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to hit something, hit something. Because there's nothing better than actually letting that anxiety off of your chest. Again, it's all about not allowing the anxiety control you, to control you. My bad. So it's all about not giving it power. And that's the most simplest thing to the most complex feeling in the freaking world. And it pisses me off because when I first was told that, when I was first like introduced to, oh, you just breathe through a paper bag. Like, I will never forget. I was in college and my friend and we were taking anatomy 2 together, and we're talking about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system and how it affects the brain and all this other stuff. And we start talking about anxiety. Now, all of us in the room are like laughing because we all got anxiety. So we like, my ears is tuned in. What we about to learn? All of a sudden, she says, so you guys ever see like the movies where like the people are freaking out on the plane and they hand out like the paper bags, and we're like, yeah, where is this going? Turns out, if you actually breathe into a paper bag when you're having a panic attack, it regulates your breathing. It forces you to slow the fuck down. It forces your mind to slow down. Mind you, me and my friend were like, what the? So we were all thinking it, but I was the one who said it. I was like, you kidding me, right? I was so mad. I was so mad because here I said, wait. I said, where's my hand? I remember saying this to my professor. I said, hold on. I'm going to need you to run that back, because how dare you just tell me that it's that simple? Wait a second. It can't be that simple, right? And she said, it can be in certain situations. If you think about it, it's all about how the body is regulating itself. So I was really pissed because I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me I'll be over here hyperventilating and all I need to do is breathe into a damn bag? Like, she was like, yeah, but you also have to focus on the breathing into the bag. It's not just breathing into the bag, because then you're hyperventilating into the bag, right? But I said that, and my friend was like, wait a second. She said, you know what's funny? I usually just take my anxiety medication. And I'm straight. Or I'll usually just, this is sad, but she said, I usually just let it pass. Like, I don't ever breathe into a bag. She's like, we're all just sitting there thinking like, breathe into a bag? How? You can't be serious. This is a really complex feeling, and it has this just simple solution. So I even asked, I said, so what about if I'm hyperventilating? She's like, breathe into the bag. And I'm like, I'm skeptical of that. I'm still skeptical of it, but I see where it could be beneficial. So if you want another tool, breathe into a bag, a paper bag, or something that will allow you to watch the air expand and your breathing expand. Your breathing expand and contract and expand and contract. Because that gives you something to focus on rather than focusing on the anxiety itself. But I definitely understand where the concept could be used in that method, because I do recall seeing that method on TV, but I did not think that like actually would work, because if I'm hyperventilating that hard, that heavy, then the bag would just be. That's just me though. If I'm hyperventilating and I'm supposed to be breathing into the bag, I feel like there are different levels of anxiety. Again, that's more so for like if you feel like you can do it on your own type of thing. But if you need assistance to get you out of the panic attack, by all means, call someone, because I did. Not just because I did, but like I never wanted to call someone, but I knew like I can't get out of this on my own. This panic attack is not good. It's not one that's normal for me. It's not one that I've experienced in a long time. This was more so a compounding of events that was just like, boom, here, take it all and deal with it. So that's why I had to reach out to reinforcements, because like I said, I could not handle it on my own. And that's okay for me to admit. And it has to be okay for you to admit as well. If you're ever in a state of anxiety where it is now beyond your control and you feel like you are going to do something that is going to be harmful of yourself or harmful in nature to yourself in any way, or you're having those bad thoughts as well, definitely seek assistance. Call your friend. I always have a support group in terms of people in my life that I am very, very close to, that I can trust with this side of myself, because I know that they're not going to judge me. It took a while for me to build that. But now that I have them, like the other day, I was panicking and I was freaking out, and I was trying not to send all the messages in the world. And I sent one message and I begged my friend, I said, please don't listen to it, because I was not myself. And it's not that I don't want her to see me in that light. It's simply because I was able to get through it. I don't want to cause you any worry. I don't want to cause anyone any concern when I'm able to get through it. If I'm not able to get through it, hell yeah, by all means, I'm calling my best friend and I'm saying, look, I can't get through this. I need you to talk me down. Because if we allow ourselves to try to handle every single thing on our own, it's not possible. You really have to have people in your corner to get through this thing called life, to get through this thing called healing. Because, baby, what's that thing I always say? It ain't linear. It is not no smooth line that says, here's the light, and there's the finish line, and you're done. No. It is an ongoing thing. It is an ongoing journey, and it is individual and personal to you. It may not look like everyone else. That's why I said my anxiety can't be the blueprint, but I can give you tools so you can navigate your own anxiety if it's similar to mine. My anxiety may be completely different from someone else's. Completely. And the reason why I'm using my instead of the anxiety is because this is personal for me, but any other time, to form that detachment from my anxiety, or there we go, to form that detachment from the anxiety, I usually say the in reference to anxiety that I experience, because I don't want it to become, you don't want to take ownership of the anxiety itself. You want to use words like, the anxiety is killing me, or the anxiety I'm experiencing in this present moment is too much for me. You don't want to say, my anxiety is so bad, I have crippling anxiety, because those are power words. Those are powerful statements. And when you put those type of words together and you string them into a form of a sentence, what you're then saying is, this is now a part of me. I take full ownership. I take full responsibility for this feeling, and I'm going to have this. I'm going to carry this thing. When in actuality, the best thing you can do is let it go. If you guys want any more tips on how to overcome or regulate your anxiety, I could talk about this all day long because it's literally what I do all day long as part of my routine in my life. I burn incense. I do 10-minute video yoga videos. And in addition to that, I will find a good meditative pose. Usually I sit like crisscross with my legs crisscross, and I'll breathe in the incense and I will just speak. And I speak a lot of affirmations to myself, or a lot of the times I like to, when I'm in savasana, that is amazing for me, because that is when I allow the tension to melt off of my body, and I just let my mind go blank, or I allow the thoughts to just pass like clouds. And I start to envision colors. I start to really picture what I want my day to look like, what I want my life to look like. And there's no sense of pressure. It's just this is what I want. It's an existence in that space of, this is what I want. Doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be forced. It's just a feeling of being at that time. Like when my eyes are closed, my head is back, I'm laying on my back, and I'm just, nothing is tight. Everything's just, it's just, oh my God. I can't describe the feeling. It is amazing. And also that's when I can see my loved ones. I can really just process how far I've come. I can take a look at, I tackled that anxiety today. I kicked anxiety's ass today. I can be proud of myself in those moments, and it's free of judgment. Another tip I will say is, I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but I don't even know what number we're at because I done said so many different tips, but they're all very useful, and they're all very, very, very beneficial and very important. Especially when entering a state of mindfulness. That's very important, because when we're in a state of mindfulness, that means that we are focused on not just the mind, but we're focused on the mind in relation to oneself. So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to center my thoughts on this one thing and I'm going to harp on it, I'm going to obsess on it. No, it's actually understanding that our minds can be thinking about a whole bunch of things all at once. It's very complex. We can have all these complicated thoughts, but it's allowing ourselves to be centered in just one of them and not judge it. When I say pause, breathe, and relax, I literally mean that. Take pause in your surroundings. Take pause in your life. Sit in a place where you're comfortable. Sit in a place where you don't judge yourself. Because the big thing about entering mindfulness, as far as tackling, overcoming, regulating your nervous system when it comes to anxiety, is not having that judgment piece there. I swear, the biggest thing with my anxiety was always, I could say at that point, because it was. At this point, I hadn't detached it, so I did take it on. So, for past tense, the biggest thing that I'll say with my anxiety back then was I judge myself a lot, very hard and very harshly. I never took the time to look at myself and say, you're not those things. I tried, but so often the overthinking and anxiety would weigh out, and I would just be like, damn, that's just it. That's the reality. That's the truth. So for so long, I existed in this space of, I am what people perceive me to be. I am that. And that caused more panic attacks. That caused more hyperventilations and more out-of-body experiences and more of those concerning mental health diagnostics. Because it's not easy to just be like, okay, I'm just going to pick up and I'm going to be done. I'm going to do this immediately. It really did take time, because the thing about your nervous system, the thing about our nervous system is that we are deep feelers. Some of us have learned how to detach so well that we don't really feel anything, but guess what? Those feelings are still there. They're just very, very, very deep. And they come up either when you least expect it, or they just manifest in different ways. It comes out in different ways. And there's nothing else that you can do to stop those feelings from existing. So if anyone's dealing with anxiety or a sense of urgency or feeling overwhelmed and has chosen not to acknowledge it and not to address it, that's a big problem right there. Because if you don't first address it, then you give it more power. If you don't first pinpoint and say, I feel that, I'm feeling a little tension, I feel it, okay, it's coming. If you don't first at least do that, then you're pretending, oh, I don't feel that. And then 2 hours later, or maybe a month from now, or maybe a year from now, something can happen to where you're in a situation and your body is like, I don't like this. But because you chose to block it out and ignore it, you don't know how to regulate it. You don't know how to come across it, because you're like, what is this feeling? Why am I feeling so strongly about this situation? Or why am I feeling so strongly about this thought? Oh, I know. Maybe because a year ago, I decided to ignore this sense of anxiety. And now, my body's catching up with me. Because if you decide that one way to overcome it is by pretending it doesn't exist, it's going to bite you in the ass. And I can say that truthfully, because I used to do it. I used to pretend that I didn't have anxiety. I used to be like, nope, I'm fine. But as I just mentioned, each time I had a panic attack, the main thing that I said was, it's not real. This isn't happening. I'm fine. I'm okay. But I was lying to myself. I was literally in the middle of having a panic attack, and I was like, I'm fine. Like, imagine the crazy, and I don't know how else to describe her. Imagine the girl with tears streaming down her face, a smile plastered on her face, and I mean, it's about as wide as the Joker's, and she's clearly mentally not okay. She's clearly having an emotional breakdown, right? And she's like, I'm fine. She's sitting in the mirror and she's just like, I'm fine. Like, like, I'm going to be fine. Like, I'm going to possess myself to be fine, when you can't paint a smile on a cracked face. You can't keep painting something that doesn't exist. No matter how much you want it to exist, you have to first acknowledge, hey, I am having some feelings about this situation here. I am feeling overwhelmed. I cannot go to the store because I am feeling too anxious to be around people today. Okay, let's acknowledge that. And then let's come up with a plan to redirect this anxiety so that it doesn't debilitate us for future days. I can honestly tell you that if I allowed my anxiety back then, rephrasing, if I allowed my anxiety back then to control who I am now, I'm going to give you a snapshot. I'm going to try to give you guys a mental picture of who I would be. For one, I wouldn't have... Okay, let's get uncomfortable. I would not be eating as much as I do. I would not care about my body as much as I do. I would not engage with people as much as I do now. And that includes friends and family, even my support group, my support system, my support circle. I would not, I wouldn't have this podcast. I would probably not be doing yoga as much as I do. Because again, I wouldn't care about my appearance or my body as much as I do. In terms of staying healthy, I would freak out about what to eat and end up eating something really unhealthy. I would, more times than not, I probably would be someone who still slept in bed until 11 a.m. and didn't necessarily want to experience life. I would become a depressed individual who struggled to get out of bed, who would only force herself to work out to make herself feel somewhat good, but then immediately get back in bed and put on a show and watch TV for hours on end to keep myself from thinking about what was plaguing my mind. I would break down at the drop of a hat because I was too fragile. You know, I used to hold all of my feelings and I didn't let anything out. I didn't vocalize it. I didn't have that positive self-talk that I do now. So I would be that person. I would compare myself to others. Oh, God, I would compare myself to others. I would be way less of a woman than I am now. The biggest thing, though, is that I wouldn't eat. The stress that I would experience would cause me to feel as though that was all that I needed to be fueled was the stress. So the anxiety would cause me to isolate, because my anxiety back then didn't necessarily focus on, like I said, it focused on, this is how people perceive me to be, right? So they must think that I'm X, Y, and Z. And if they think this about me, then okay, that must be true. There was no battle with like, okay, this is, you know, it wasn't that confidence piece wasn't there. So when my anxiety back then was really, really bad, of course I was having really, really low days because I didn't have the stability at the time to give myself the stability that I needed. So of course I'm seeking it from other people. Of course I'm looking for it in every other direction. And that's not helping. It's actually making the anxiety back then worse because I felt alone. In a nutshell, I felt alone. Truly. And another thing with like this self-isolation, the anxiety that I had back then always made me feel like a bother, or made me feel like I was annoying to other people. And oh, y'all, let's get uncomfortable. The only times that it would lessen was when I would be like, I'm not annoying. I'm not a burden. But the anxiety that I had back then always made me feel as if I were, when I was experiencing those moments of doubt, the overwhelming thoughts and things like that. I always felt that I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I was a bother. I just feel like a burden. I just feel like I can't talk to anyone about it because, not that they wouldn't understand, I just don't want to put my problems on anyone else. And I can't do that to my friends. I can't do that to my family. So I'll handle it. I'll deal with it. And that's not the way that you live. Sorry, but that's not the way that you live. That's not even the way that you thrive. That's actually the only way that you just coast through life. Take it from someone who has done it. If you're dealing with thoughts that are hard to address, and you struggle with feeling like you're annoying, you're a burden, and you don't want to put it on people, you're not alone. And so often when we have those thoughts, or if we do have those thoughts, if you relate to me, not gonna generalize anything here, but if you relate to that feeling, I really want you to know that you're not alone. Because so often of us feel the same way, that I'm realizing we all feeling the same. We all experiencing similar levels of anxiety. It may not be the exact same thing, but that's a commonality that we have. And that's why I made this podcast, so that we can connect through the strength of our vulnerability with the power of our connectivity. Because that's the only way that we heal, is together. We can heal individually, yes, by doing the work, but collectively, if we want to see progress within, especially within the Black generation, within our Black community, we got to be willing to dig deep and talk about it. Like, this is really difficult for me to talk about right now, but but you guys asked for it. No. I think it's time. You know, for so long, I allowed anxiety to control me. And now to be in a position where I feel like I have mastered my peace, I feel like I have maintained my peace, and I know how to regulate my peace and preserve my peace, I can speak on it now. Whereas before, I probably been like, I'm a wreck, y'all. I'm a wreck. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this at all. And that's just because that was who I was then. And I think it's beautiful to see the growth that has come from all of these experiences. Truly beautiful, because, like I said, a lot of the times, and even now, I'm not saying that I don't ever experience this now. As I just mentioned, I experienced it yesterday. But I fought back. So, in terms of like what I mainly experience now, as far as I don't experience external panic attacks, I only have internal ones, and the internal ones are more so mental, and they don't happen as frequently. The little things like driving. Okay, that's one. But that's honestly mainly it. Aside from what happened yesterday, because it was unexpected, the main thing that I experience some anxiety around is driving. And I'll say unanswered conversations sometimes. But again, that's me wanting to go back to the way that I was before, who would pretty much be like, I don't care about your situation, you hurt me, and go off. Now, I don't say that I go off. I will say that I regulate that part of myself, and I acknowledge the fact that people have lives. Other people have lives. This isn't necessarily the end-all, be-all situation. This person will come back. We will talk. So often within my experiences with anxiety in itself have often centered around, okay, this is it. This is the end. This is the be-all, end-all. This is it. Like, if I don't talk to this person now, then I'm never going to speak to them again. And that's not me. That's anxiety. That's the what if. Like, okay, if I don't speak to this person now, what if I never talk to them again? What if I never see them again? What if I move and I never talk to this person again? Or what if what if I decide to stay in my house and I miss out on something really important? That can be one too. But do you see the drastic difference between this level of anxiety, so to speak, or worry versus the times when it was very unstable and it was, well, the worst case scenario was, what if I die and no one cares? What if I'm bothering them and they don't want to talk to me again, and I fuck something up? And it's such a drastic level of like a huge 180 of the mindset shift. It was a shift of perspective. It was a, what if this, then so what? Now it's, well, what if that doesn't work out? Okay, it doesn't work out. It's acknowledging it, accepting it, and moving on, because I can't write a story that's unwritten. I mean, no, that's right. I can't write a story that's unwritten. I can't make up a solution. I can't make up a reaction. I can't make up a confrontation that hasn't happened. I cannot write a story that is unwritten. If it's unwritten, wait a second. If it's unwritten, that means that there hasn't been any pen to that paper. It is a blank slate. So who am I to go in and then say, okay, this is what my future is going to look like. This is what will happen if my future doesn't come out like this. And if the future that I want doesn't exist in this way, oh well, we're going to go to this what if, and we're going to put this puzzle piece here when we don't even have the puzzles yet. We don't even have the puzzles yet. We trying to make it fit in a puzzle, and we don't have the board. We don't have it. It's not there. A lot of the times also, y'all gonna love this episode, because I love this episode. I love this episode already. But a lot of the times when you look at anxiety, it's not there. A lot of the times it is a false reality that we have conjured in our brains that doesn't exist. So a lot of the times I have to be like, that hasn't happened yet. Wait, like, I've seen so many memes on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat where they're like, anxiety be like, what you worry about? And the person in the video is like, what we worried about? And anxiety walks away. And anxiety walks away. And it's like, it's literally like that. Anxiety will tell you one thing and your reality be totally different. Another prime example. I was talking with one of my friends. I don't even know how long ago, but this conversation has always stood out to me. I was talking with one of my friends, and I said something about, I can't believe she would do that to me. And my friend turned around and said, you don't know that she did that to you. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, this is what you assume is going to happen. You don't know that that has happened yet. She hasn't told you that that's what she did yet. You're assuming that. That's your anxiety. That's anxiety. You're assuming that this is going to happen when it hasn't happened yet. And it probably won't. So often this whole thing, suffice to say, is our minds conjuring up a reality that doesn't exist, conjuring up a fear that doesn't exist, conjuring up all of these different insecurities that we probably don't even have because of the reality of what if. It's a huge what if question. That's all it is. Instead of asking ourselves what if, we need to be asking and focusing on what is. What is happening right now? What is occurring for us in the upcoming months? What is the best way to get out of this situation? Not what if. Because if we don't know. We don't know. And baby, if I did, I would tell you. Because if I knew what my life would look like 5 years down the line, I would tell you. If I knew who, I would tell you. I would say, yeah, so here's the answer to all of your anxiety. So it's like the answer to a math test. I would have it all for you, signed, sealed, and delivered. There you go. This is what you do. But that's not life. Realistically, that is just not happening. It's just not. So often of my experiences, especially with the unanswered conversations or the unanswered text or text message or like not being able to communicate with someone consistently. So often I've had to literally look myself in the mirror and say, is that the anxiety talking or is that the reality? What is the reality of the situation? The reality of the situation is X. Okay, so then what is the anxiety of the situation? It's analyzing, and maybe this because I'm a Libra, but analyzing the situation to where you can understand, like, okay, I need to be able to separate myself, my reality from the anxiety, from the false identity. Because anxiety is just lies, because we don't know. We really don't. It's lies that we tell ourselves about a reality that hasn't happened yet. It's as simple as that. So what you do with those lies is how you overcome, how you regulate, how you manage, monitor, whatever word you want to use to soothe yourself. That's how you do it. It's not that simple as I keep saying, because there is a process that goes into this. And I will say it is a process because it's methodical, right? You have to start with, okay, how are we feeling in this moment? So asking yourself in the frame of mind, are we okay? Okay, that's the first question. We answer that. Second question, why are we feeling this way? Or what led up to feeling this way? That's the second question. Third is looking at how can we regulate it? What tools are around me that I can use to regulate? Okay. First tool, my breathing. Second tool, writing. Third tool, incense, aromatherapy. Fourth tool, communication. Reaching out to support if you need it. Fifth tool, I would classify this as finding somewhere where you feel safe and you're in a non-judgmental space for yourself. Do not judge your feelings. Do not judge your thoughts. If the anxiety wants to be let out, let it. Don't care if you smash something. So that's going to be the sixth tool. Let it out. If you're not in a place where you can let it out later. Make a plan to let it out later. Because you got to release it. And I will say again, because we're going to put this one on there twice, do not judge your feelings. Hold space and validate the experience that you're experiencing. Because so often, like I said, not going to go into this again, but like I said, so often we judge ourselves for the anxiety that we're experiencing based off of something else. But hold that space, validate yourself, be your best freaking friend. Especially for those of us who may have been coming from toxic situations or toxic relationships, toxic upbringings, whatever you want to call it, wherever the anxiety is stemming from for you, acknowledge it and hold space for your feelings without any judgment. Reserve no judgment. This is you are your own safe space. I was told that too. I'll talk about that on the next episode. But you are your own safe space. Be your own best friend. And remember to pause, breathe, and relax. It is only temporary. It is not everlasting. It is only temporary. It is in the moment, not final. Y'all, I don't know if y'all gonna love this episode. And at this point, I'm gonna be real with y'all. This was a good one. And the reason why it was a good one is because it reminded me of some things too. But this has been Queen J with Let's Get Uncomfortable. Thank you for seeing and hearing me. If you'd like to support me, you can follow me on Instagram at officiallyjanayh. That is JANAYH. That is my Instagram handle. If you'd like to actually take a look at the blog, it is on vfvls.com. That stands for voicesforthevoiceless.com. That is where I document my healing journey through poetic journalism, much like I do here, but it's a little more detailed. If you'd like to support the podcast and support my future endeavors with my wellness center, appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. My Cash App is Poetess20. That is POETESS 20. Again, this has been Queen J with episode 17 of Let's Get Uncomfortable. Like I said, we may have lost count. It's okay. Thank you for seeing and hearing me. Love you. Peace. Queen J.